Good day and welcome to today's broadcast. Today we are discussing the electricity sector. I think it's like a follow-up to our earlier program in relation to the power trade. I think there was a need that we proceed to this particular sector in light of the report by the International Monetary Fund. You are aware that there was a delegation by the International Monetary Fund that were in Zambia between April 29 to May 13th. This was a 2 weeks program. They were there to for their fifth review. Zambia is about to complete the IMF bailout. It was a 38 weeks that they had set for themselves, and Zambia obtained that loan of $1.3 billion. That was increased to $1.7 billion, and this was the fifth review. And so there is a Miss Vera Martins, who led the delegation, and she has given an appraisal of a report that Zambia is on route to a rebound of the economy. The good prospects were coming from the agricultural sector. We've had good rains, farmers have planted, and they think we'll have some humble harvest that will, cushion the issues of cost of living and the price of essentials like mealie meal and wheat. We will see how that goes. However, there's a very, very strong caution that there is a slow recovery in electricity generation, and the IMF has called for broad reforms, urgent broad reforms. They've said there should be sustained reforms to the energy sector. Now, this is a sector that has received a number of reforms since 2017. We even enacted a new Electricity Act of 2019 to take into account, in some way, opening up the sector, removing the bottlenecks, especially for independent power producers, and also opening up, the window for renewables, either by ZESCO or by the private sector. That was the purpose of the Electricity Act of 2019. ZESCO commissioned a cost of study. There was one that was done internally, and the other one that was supported by the Africa Development Bank. And it was done by a firm from UK. The cost of service study of how ZESCO should move to cost-reflective tariffs was produced, adopted by the government of President Hakainde Hichilema. And recently, President Hakainde Hichilema announced reforms where he said we'll promulgate the open access, where the infrastructure by ZESCO for transmission, distribution, and retail will be open to the private sector. And he also announced net metering. This is for micro suppliers to the national grid, domestic suppliers to the grid. If you have excess in your solar, you could, you can sell to ZESCO. But IMF says, no, the reforms are inadequate. They want the reforms done. We know what they're talking about. They're talking about ZESCO. Today, ZESCO announced a 17-hour load shedding. 17-hour load shedding. And this is worrying because Zambians are saying, we have enough water. You said you didn't have water because there was not adequate rains. The last past season, we've had adequate rains. So why are we still going on this load shedding, and that it has affected us the last 2 years and it continues to affect us? ZESCO says they're banking water for the whole year, and they've announced that they'll be changing. At the moment, we are now currently at a 17-hour load shedding. Earlier, the profile of ZESCO and the power shortage that Zambia was going through was profiled in this TRT report, courtesy of TRT report. Just listen to it.
Zambia is facing severe power crisis, with the country's electricity company alerting the public that from September 1st, many users would have to bear with up to 17 hours of no power supply daily. Zambia Electricity Supply Corporation ZESCO said recently that the power disruption, which is locally known as load shedding, will be implemented across the country. Some parts of the nation, including the capital Lusaka, are already experiencing long hours without power supply. On Tuesday, August 27th, ZESCO said in a statement that it acknowledged with regret that some customers, particularly those in Lusaka, have experienced extended power rationing of about 20 hours. In a statement on Monday, ZESCO said it was anticipating a significant power supply gap from the month of September. The company attributes the shortage mainly to drought, which has affected hydropower generation. The other cited factors are annual power plant maintenance and equipment failure due to faults and vandalism. ZESCO said a major water collection facility near Lake Kariba is only 9% full, making it impossible to generate enough hydroelectric energy from the facility. The company added that the power plant at Kariba North Bank risks shutting down by September 14th, further worsening the power crisis. ZESCO has therefore advised Zambians to use electricity sparingly. For instance, the company has advised Zambians to unplug electric appliances that are not in use to prevent standby power consumption, to use energy-saving bulbs, and to schedule power-intensive activities such as laundry and cooking during off-peak hours. According to ZESCO, the peak hours for electricity consumption in Zambia are from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. and again from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. local time. In June, Zambia's parliament told the then Energy Minister, Peter Kapala, who has since been transferred to the Fisheries and Livestock Ministry, that ZESCO often breached its own load-shedding timetable. For instance, ZESCO would write on the schedule that power outage would last 12 hours in a given area, but in reality it would last up to 20 hours. Kapala said at the time he would direct ZESCO to stick to the load-shedding timetable. Zambia has announced plans to import electricity from the neighboring South Africa and Zimbabwe to address the shortage. In early August, the new Minister for Energy, Makozo Chikote, said Zambia would soon procure generators which would be installed at hospitals, schools, markets, and critical business areas.
Thank you, TRT. Sometimes our journalists from TRT do a better job than our own local journalists. It makes us think and sit upright and see what we're doing wrong, because our conferring entity compile information in a systematic, better manner and better delivery than ourselves. So thanks, TRT, for that brief on Zambia. The main utility in our country is ZESCO. It's state-owned. It's a state-owned enterprise under IDC. It's one of the largest utilities in Africa. It's a vertically integrated utility, meaning it generates its own power, it transmits its own power, it distributes its own power, it retails its own power. It occupies a space of over 80%. We have a few independent power producers in Mamba Collieries, Ndola Energy, Lunsem for hydroelectric energy, and we have some joint ventures or subsidiaries like Kafiwe Gorge Power, Kariba North Bank, and Iteji. These have some subsidiaries of ZESCO, but they have some links with the core developers to those generation power plants. There's been a call that ZESCO must unbundle. South Africa is facing the same crisis. They said load shedding could only go if ESCOM was unbundled. The president created a new ministry, the electricity ministry, and brought it under State House. And going now over 1 year, South Africa hasn't had load shedding. So the problem wasn't necessarily that ESCOM was a big, huge entity that needed unbundling. The load shedding in South Africa is gone, not because they've unbundled ESCOM. We ought to be very slow with these proposed reforms, especially those aimed at unbundling ZESCO. You can get studies from Ghana, which unbundled its power utility, and Kenya. You can even go back to UK, who are trying to bundle back their utility companies because electricity has become very expensive for UK homeowners or residents. France also has embarked on reforms to somehow centralize its utility companies. Here we are. People are beginning to run away from the unbundling. As we are being told to unbundle, we know what that means. We know that this benefits only certain entities. We saw when we were told to privatize, even profitable ongoing companies like Chilanga Cement, Zambia Sugar, where we were told we should unbundle and privatize. We did that. It makes millions for whoever bought it, but it doesn't make millions for ourselves. So should we go in as IMF is proposing? Can't we learn from what we did in the 90s, where they told us to privatize everything? They said government has no business in business. They said business should be run by the private sector. We need to have this debate about ZESCO, because we are going to wake up one day and ZESCO will be unbundled. ZESCO will be in different ownership. So I think we need to critically look at this, and that's why I brought this topic for you and me to discuss. But first, let's go to the current challenges that ZESCO is facing. It's highly indebted. A lot of burdened loans are on ZESCO, some guaranteed by the state up to about $1.3 billion, but some on its own books. And the recent power purchase agreement signed with various suppliers, entities, and independent power producers demonstrate that ZESCO's income and its books may not be that healthy, because we've burdened it with so many power purchase agreements that each one of them should, like ZESCO should be the only off-taker. The books for ZESCO are not looking good, and even any of its revenues are already committed to even some past loans and some power purchase agreements like those with Mamba collieries. Number two, operational challenges. ZESCO has what they are calling hydrological risk. 90% of its power is generated from hydroelectricity power. So it becomes vulnerable to production when we have droughts, when we have these climate change impact, when we have reduced water levels in the current dams it has at Kariba, Kafue Gorge Lower and Kafue Gorge Upper, at Iteji and other dams, Batoka. Then it has a huge case of vandalism and theft, where people are stealing these very expensive equipment, whether it's transmission lines or transformers. And the operations of ZESCO are frequently vandalized, stolen, and it disrupts service, costing ZESCO millions of dollars, because ZESCO keeps on buying the same equipment. We need to attend to the issue of ZESCO's the vandalism. Increased demand. I think ZESCO is struggling to keep up pace with the increased demand for both domestic and commercial, and it's not investing at the right amount, right capital to meet this increased demand. Then it has aging infrastructure. Other than the new power transmission lines like the ones from Kafue Gorge to Kafue to Livingstone, other than the new one from Kabwe up to Kasama, most of the equipment, the transmission lines are old, aged, and some just are not industrial in nature. Someone told me that like the line from Lusaka to Mongu, I think it's an 11 kV, when we're supposed to have something like a 333 kV, which is an industrial line, which can help Western Province or Mongo or any other place set up industrial sites. If you have an 11 kV, what will you do with that? Poor demand forecasting. ZESCO has been criticized for underestimating domestic electricity demand. Remember when they appointed the new managing director, Victor Mapani, and he ordered electricity pause of $110 million to buy 60,000 poles from Zimbabwe and South Africa. It's a matter I was interested in. I reported him to the SEC and to ZPPA because I felt that they should have advertised that and that there was local production of those poles. And I was objecting to repatriating $110 million to foreign entities. This is a huge amount of money, especially if Zafico, Copperbelt Forestry, and other distributors, importers had these power poles. But the point is, he bought, his justification was that this is an emergency. I've got a short list where I've got a waiting list of up to 60,000 people that need to be connected, and I don't have poles. I think there was an ensuing debate that do they even need to use timber poles? Can they do concrete ones? Or, those framed one, aluminium, strengthened aluminium ones? There was that debate. ZESCO is said to have below the cost tariffs. Remember the cost of service study that I just alluded to, the one that was done in 2019 and another one that was done in 2020, 2021 that has said, especially the mining sector, they pay very little. In fact, the domestic consumers pay far higher than commercial and mining entities pay. So ZESCO is struggling with below the cost tariffs. And the best example is just what happens. They give CEC such a below cost tariff, and CEC proceeds to make a cost reflective tariff and mince millions of dollars from the same power that ZESCO generated. In the times of peak times, they've said ZESCO struggles to sell power. Can you imagine? I think I agree with it. In light of the current shortage, you might not see this, but in light of surplus, we had, as at 2011, only 1,600 megawatts, and we had a huge shortage of power. ZESCO couldn't meet the national demand. But 10 years later, after the huge investment that was done by the PF, Kariba North Bank, Iteji, Kafue Gorge lower, Kafue Gorge higher, we went into a surplus. Our generation capacity jumped to 3,700 generation capacity, and we had excess. When Victor Mapani and his team came in, they couldn't believe their luck. They quickly went to Namibia, Botswana, Tanzania, and South Africa and committed themselves to these long-term contracts. And they are supplying power to Namibia, Botswana. They never anticipated the drought, although there were technical reports to that effect. We know El Nino comes every 10 years. We had the West El Nino in 2014, 2015. We knew by 2023, 2024, another El Nino would come, and it came. So, but ZESCO management were very excited. They said our books are bad. We owe $500 million to Mamba Collieries Power. We owe on our loan portfolio up to $1.3 billion. Here is some money coming in, $50 million a month. So they rushed and signed these long-term agreements. And when we had the downside, when we had no power, when we had electricity shortages, the contracts were so bad that ZESCO couldn't exit those contracts. And you have now ZESCO exporting power, and both Botswana and Namibia celebrating that in light of the West load shedding, in light of the West drought in Southern Africa, we have power thanks to ZESCO. Yet our people were suffering load shedding, sometimes up to 24 hours, 28 hours, 32 hours, and our economy was negatively affected. Just look at the PS Voss matter from Namibia thanking Zambia for exporting power to Namibia.
I'm also aware of the electricity problems that Zambia is facing. But despite the problems that we have with the supply of electricity in Zambia, you still supply us with electricity. Again, you would have said, we cannot sacrifice our power when we have shortage. But you still give us. Katima Mlilo town, where I come from here, is supplied with power from Zambia. When you have a power outage here, we also have power outage. But that's the brotherhood we are talking about, the neighborhood we're talking about. And we should only be grateful and continue to exist in this manner. You spoke also about the Walsh-Bendola-Lubumbashi corridor. I want to tell Your Honor that that corridor was developed during our time. I was Permanent Secretary for Works and Transport, and my counterpart here was Judge Sichinga, Dominic.
The power issue, I think, is huge here. And colleagues, we continue to share everything. The issue of power, SC, you know, when you are in a country like mine, when we have passed through a lot of load shedding, people say, oh, so you see, they are selling power to Namibia. This is a town in Namibia, very close to Zambia. We are talking of one-stop border, for example. And if you have one town with blackout, then how do you do 24-hour? But this was an agreement, that is the only thing I would add, was an agreement that was signed in 2020 between Zambia and Namibia. And you don't give up or relegate such commitments. As you have seen, Zambia is a reliable friend to everybody that they work with. So we don't just say because the situation has come, when in fact there is no other solution on the other side. That's why we are also importing power, as the others are, you know, getting a bit, just a bit of power from here. We will continue. Let's invest it together in the systems, like I said, in renewable sources of energy. Together we can develop and be interconnected and ensure that there is no disruption in our economic development, because power has so much on that.
Yeah, so we've been exporting power to the region in light of the huge crisis, because we are naturally supposed to have a surplus until drought hits us. I think this calls for, ZESCO to diversify its energy source and its generation source, that should have solar, it should have coal. I am a big advocate of coal, and that we should set up thermal plants in Mamba and Sinazongwe, because Zambia has coal reserves of up to 200 years. These are huge millions and millions of coal reserves that we have. We should utilize them. Look at the people who are the big green advocates that says your power generation should be clean, should be like hydro, like solar, like wind. When the Ukraine-Russia war came up, they switched on their old thermal plants. They switched on. They restarted nuclear power plants, and even nuclear is one of the cleanest energy anyway. Zambia does produce, we have a mineral that can be a component to nuclear production. If we are using a nuclear power plant, we can have, because we have uranium that is mined in northwestern province. No one even talks about it, on what happens to that uranium. Where does it go? How do we export it? ZESCO has other issues it claims. Falling kwacha. The instability in the foreign exchange market has been terrible to ZESCO, because some of its loans are dollar denominated. So if they borrowed when the kwacha was at 17 kwacha, if they borrowed $100 when it was at 17 kwacha, now that dollar was 17 kwacha, now it's 28 kwacha. So instead of paying back 17 kwacha, they will have to pay back 28 kwacha per $100, per $1. And some of the pricing, I think with Mamba Collieries and others, are in dollars with these independent power suppliers. And so the terrible instability in the forex market adversely affects ZESCO. IMF is advocating that ZESCO is too big a utility. You unbundle it. The unbundling requires that we separate the different parts of the energy supply chain into distinct entities. So generation should be a company on its own. The transmission lines should be owned by another. The distribution and retail lines should be held by another. And a new company, maybe just purely for trading in power, should emerge, and ZESCO then should be broken up into either 3, 4, or 5 entities. They usually advocate that this is to bring competition, that it improves efficiency, and it ensures stable supply of electricity. And that when you break up a monopoly like that, it allows the private sector also to come in the market. I don't think that we need to unbundle ZESCO. ZESCO can be run efficiently. In fact, the various entities they want to be independent companies can be run profitably as independent divisions of ZESCO. If the generation division, distribution, transmission, retail, these can be formulated in a manner that they are very, very profitable. And as I've tabulated the problems of ZESCO and ZESCO's issue, it's the bulk of it is just political, because politicians treat ZESCO as a cash cow. They want ZESCO as a cash cow. They rush to give themselves exorbitant, non-transparent contracts, like we saw in the power trade, where ZESCO is paying millions of dollars to power traders, and the process is not transparent. If you remove political interference, you ensure that ZESCO is efficient. And when you unbundle a huge utility like ZESCO, the other entities may not be as profitable. We saw what we did when we unbundled ZAMTEL and the PTC. We were told PTC, for it to be viable, you have to unbundle it. Put telecom separately and put post office on the side. We saw what happened. The post office side died. The post office side died. If PTC was maintained as it was, we knew that the telecommunications side could have been cross-subsidizing the company, thereby keeping the job and thereby keeping the company afloat. PTC, ZAMTEL and ZAMPOS. ZAMPOS can't survive by those buses you keep on borrowing it. No. The viability of a post office is dead. In other countries, they are giving it more government services just for the post office to survive, such as, for example, the social cash transfer can be a project of the post office. And as soon as we separated the post office, remember, it was a bank, it was a telecom company, and it was running postal services. So we created NatSave as a bank. Then we created ZAMTEL. Then we created ZAMPOST. And we've seen that ZAMPOST died. When you unbundle ZESCO, there'll be a loss, especially in the economies of scope, especially that this is a vertically integrated firm. And you say that you want to reduce costs. No, some costs even just go up, because the transmission company will tell you to wield this power will cost so much. At the moment, ZESCO can subsidize itself, economies of scale, and they then produce something efficient to the consumer. But if you have an intermediary company, it can simply say, I can't wield your power, ZESCO, at that rate. My rate is the following. So either ZESCO, the tariffs will dramatically go up to the consumer, or ZESCO will be burdened, if it's running generation, to pay up that huge cost. So I think, in my view, we should be very slow to break up ZESCO. We should be very slow, and we as Zambians must have our own local solutions. We also must learn to what happened where they pressured companies, utility companies in Kenya and Ghana to unbundle. For Zimbabwe, it unbundled, but it was very careful. Everything remained integrated. Everything remained under state control. There was no subsidiary that was formed, whether it was a transmission. They were literally like divisions of the same, a chain. So Zimbabwe case is different, because the transmission company remains a state-owned enterprise 100%. The distribution company remained. Then the overarching overarching company to do trade and coordinate all this also was a state-owned enterprise. So that's different. ESCOM in South Africa is reluctant to unbundle ESCOM. And that's the largest utility in Africa. And there's been pressure from the IMF that they should unbundle ESCOM. Why should we yield to these reforms? What reforms is our colleagues from the IMF talking about? I think we need to interrogate. Let me open the phone lines. Let me hear your views.
Zambia is facing severe power crisis, with the country's electricity company alerting the public that from September 1st, many users would have to bear with up to 17 hours of no power supply daily. Zambia Electricity Supply Corporation, ZESCO, said recently that the power disruption, which is locally known as load shedding, will be implemented across the country. Some parts of the nation, including the capital Lusaka, are already experiencing long hours without power supply. On Tuesday, August 27th, ZESCO said in a statement that it acknowledged with regret that some customers, particularly those in Lusaka, have experienced extended power rationing of about 20 hours. In a statement on Monday, ZESCO said it was anticipating a significant power supply gap from the month of September. The company attributes the shortage mainly to drought, which has affected hydropower generation. The other cited factors are annual power plant maintenance and equipment failure due to faults and vandalism. ZESCO said a major water collection facility near Lake Kariba is only 9% full, making it impossible to generate enough hydroelectric energy from the facility. The company added that the power plant at Kariba North Bank risks shutting down by September 14th, further worsening the power crisis. ZESCO has therefore advised Zambians to use electricity sparingly. For instance, the company has advised Zambians to unplug electric appliances that are not in use to prevent standby power consumption, to use energy-saving bulbs, and to schedule power-intensive activities such as laundry and cooking during off-peak hours. According to ZESCO, the peak hours for electricity consumption in Zambia are from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. and again from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. local time. In June, Zambia's parliament told the then Energy Minister, Peter Kapala, who has since been transferred to the Fisheries and Livestock Ministry, that ZESCO often breached its own load-shedding timetable. For instance, ZESCO would write on the schedule that power outage would last 12 hours in a given area, but in reality, it would last up to 20 hours. Kapala said at the time he would direct ZESCO to stick to the load-shedding timetable. Zambia has announced plans to import electricity from the neighboring South Africa and Zimbabwe to address the shortage. In early August, the new Minister for Energy, Makozo Chikote, said Zambia would soon procure generators which would be installed at hospitals, schools, markets, and critical business areas.
Thank you very much. You can call. The number is scrolling. What happened to my number? I can see it's not. And what happened to my scrollers for the day? Let me just resolve that so that we put the number on. Patrick, I'm scrollers. How do I put them?
Zambia is facing severe power crisis, with the country's electricity company alerting the public that from September 1st, many users would have to bear with up to 17 hours of no power supply daily. Zambia Electricity Supply Corporation, ZESCO, said recently that the power disruption, which is locally known as load shedding, will be implemented across the country. Some parts of the nation, including the capital Lusaka, are already experiencing long hours without power supply. On Tuesday, August 27th, ZESCO said in a statement that it acknowledged with regret that some customers, particularly those in Lusaka, have experienced extended power rationing of about 20 hours. In a statement on Monday, ZESCO said it was anticipating a significant power supply gap from the month of September. The company attributes the shortage mainly to drought, which has affected hydropower generation. The other cited factors are annual power plant maintenance and equipment failure due to faults and vandalism. ZESCO said a major water collection facility near Lake Kariba is only 9% full, making it impossible to generate enough hydroelectric energy from the facility. The company added that the power plant at Kariba North Bank risks shutting down by September 14th, further worsening the power crisis. ZESCO has therefore advised Zambians to use electricity sparingly. For instance, the company has advised Zambians to unplug electric appliances that are not in use to prevent standby power consumption, to use energy-saving bulbs, and to schedule power-intensive activities such as laundry and cooking during off-peak hours. According to ZESCO, the peak hours for electricity consumption in Zambia are from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. and again from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. local time. In June, Zambia's parliament told the then Energy Minister, Peter Kapala, who has since been transferred to the Fisheries and Livestock Ministry, that ZESCO often breached its own load-shedding timetable. For instance, ZESCO would write on the schedule that power outage would last 12 hours in a given area, but in reality, it would last up to 20 hours. Kapala said at the time he would direct ZESCO to stick to the load-shedding timetable. Zambia has announced plans to import electricity from the neighboring South Africa and Zimbabwe to address the shortage. In early August, the new Minister for Energy, Makozo Chikote, said Zambia would soon procure generators which would be installed at hospitals, schools, markets, and critical business areas.
Thank you very much. You can call and participate on 0973 078082. I think it's reflecting there. You can participate in this proposals. What energy reforms is the IMF proposing? We have set up a law, the Electricity Act of 2019. We've done a cost of service study. ZESCO has a strategy to migrate us to cost-reflective tariffs. We know ZESCO is hugely burdened with these loans, sometimes organized by politicians. Under the current government, they've made ZESCO signed unprecedented number of power purchase agreements that will yoke laden ZESCO as a single off-taker for all these programs that they want to do. That's why I was not surprised by a recent announcement that there will be the project in Chisamba of $100 million for a solar PVP plant. And they are anchoring it on Kariba North Bank. Because Kariba North Bank is an independent company, but it's a totally owned subsidiary of ZESCO. Probably they are targeting the books of Kariba North Bank separately to do the project in Chisamba. So they are being innovative because the books of ZESCO are burdened. But should that be the reason to unbundle ZESCO? So please participate in this debate. You can call us on 0973 078082. Can't we ensure that ZESCO runs efficiently, its generation, its transmission, its distribution, its retail, and we do structural changes like the changes that we are aware of? Do you wish to participate in the program, or you are calling me personally?
My brother.
I'm live on the program. Do you wish to participate on the program, or you are calling to speak to me? Okay, thanks. Yes, I'm live, so please participate. Okay, thanks. No, I saw someone who knows me call on my personal line, so I just wanted to be sure whether they wanted to participate in the program or they wanted. Okay. I've seen a call here. We call them back. We're discussing the utility ZESCO. There was an IMF delegation that was in the country from 29th April to 13th May to do a review. And the lead delegation, Madam Vera Martin, has issued a statement predicting that Zambia will be on a rebound because of what's happening in the agricultural sector. There's an anticipated bumper harvest. We'll see when the crop focus survey is released what it will reveal. But they've cautioned the instability in the foreign exchange market. Then they've cautioned the big one, that the recovery will be hampered by what's happening in the electricity sector, because there's still electricity shortages now and anticipated, and that this may likely undermine the rebound of the economy. And IMF has called for sustained reforms to the energy sector. What do they mean? We know on the cards has been the issue of ZESCO. ZESCO is debt-laden. ZESCO is inefficient, is overstaffed. And the solution they provided or proposed is to unbundle it so that generation remains alone, transmission remains alone, distribution remains alone. What is your view in light of the lessons from the IMF and their proposals, especially to the privatization sector? Do we want to walk this path? Someone says, can I do an audio? Yes, I had stated last time that just do an audio and we can play it if you're having difficulties to get in touch. You can do an audio. That you are allowed to, we can play it. So the IMF have proposed for sustained reforms into the energy sector, and the focus is on ZESCO. What is your view? That was the purpose of our discussion today. Someone says we haven't played the videos for Donald Trump. Yes, I intended to. They had a cordial engagement with President Cyril Ramaphosa. And I commend President Cyril Ramaphosa for keeping his posture and calm and still insisting in putting his views across. The president of the US also put his views across. I think it was a wonderful engagement. People have now known how to engage President Donald Trump. He's robust, and and Cyril was very strategic, because things he did, he softened the ground. He met with Elon Musk, who was speaking for the Afrikaans in South Africa, and also remember Starlink hasn't been given a license in South Africa. So by meeting with President Cyril Ramaphosa, I think he softened, Elon Musk and Cyril Ramaphosa softened today's meeting. What we saw, an outcome, is a cultivated outcome. And in my view, bravo to President Cyril Ramaphosa for still standing strong and saying he is part of the story where they are being accused that they're taking land away from South African citizens. We know what is happening in that sector. These are historical injustices, and they ought to be corrected. And you cannot blame the government of South Africa for doing that. So one person, John Musiani, says, look, I've got some face up with you, and I've not always seen eye to eye with you on a myriad of issues. But one thing about you, Ambassador, is you get me glued to your broadcast and post, is the fact you got an expansive knowledge of the country, and that plays almost magic wand for you. Please stay at it, Ambassador Mwamba. Thank you for that encouragement. Good evening, Ambassador Mwamba. I like the way you articulate issues of national development. Continue, we are listening. Thank you very much. Good to see you, Ambassador. Okay. Good to see you, Ambassador. Please keep it up. Yes, it's a necessary debate. Sometimes there are a lot of important things happening to our country, but we look away to the petty issues. We look away while our national assets are being taken away. We look away without proper engagement. Today I was saying government had proposed that they will have a draft constitutional bill by 21st May. Today is 21st May. Where is that constitutional bill? You know, we are taken by the wind. A permanent secretary at local government said the ambulances will be in the country, all of them, 156, by 31st May. We are remaining with 9 days. Let's see if the ambulances will be there. We forget the important things. Here is an issue of ZESCO. It's a lifeline to our national development. All the ambitious projects we have to take power to every port, to every harbor, to spark development in the livestock sector requires that both ZESCO and Rural Electrification Authority work together and take that power. A private sector would never take power there. It's not profitable for them. It's too expensive. It can only be done by your national utilities. That's why you see public investment, roads, rail, electricity are left to the public sector. The private investment will not take power to Chinsali. They will say, how many consumers are in Chinsali? What do they produce in Chinsali? A government can take power to Chinsali and said there will be an agro-processing plant in Chinsali. Government has a way of integrating its national development with the tools it has available, whether they're that of telecommunication, whether it's utility power, roads and bridges and crossing points. The aim by IMF, it just looks at your books. If ZESCO is making loss, to them it's a loss. I remember there was a huge debate in South Africa with South African Airways making losses year in, year out. I think it is one of the techno experts in South Africa who then quantified these same losses. He said, look, South African Airways brings 20 million tourists to South Africa. So are you saying that the money that these 20 million people spend in South Africa is a loss? The ripple effects to the hospitality industry and tourism sector. So if you are just looking at the bottom line only, yes, South African Airways was making losses. But was it a loss to the economy? No, it was actually a big a profit multiplier to the economy of South Africa in the tourism sector, hospitality industry, transport industry. So ZESCO is so key that you can't just look at its bottom line that it has a loan of $1.3 billion and therefore you need to unbundle it. What is ZESCO's role to our ambitious national development, to the mining sector? Are you sure the private sector can take power to the mining sector? One of the things that these mining sectors want to agree on is power and the price of power to their mining, so that there is low cost of production to the copper or gold or whatever it is that they're producing. ZESCO is in dire strait. It owes $1.3 billion. But KCM owes it $800 million. Have you seen the president or the minister of finance or the minister of energy pushing KCM to pay back Vedanta, to pay back ZESCO the $800 million it owes ZESCO? We are quick to blame the utility that is inefficient, it's no longer running profitable. Yet we allow entities like CEC, KCM and others, all the utility millions of dollars. The Zamtel, every month would produce a long list of how much government ministries owes it. But you are quick to say Zamtel is making losses. You as government, you're not paying your own bills. You are racking up the bill high. ZESCO has a problem, yes. But KCM, Vedanta, you say you are a multi-million. Pay ZESCO what you owe it, the $800 million. That's a debate we should have. We shouldn't surrender our utilities just like that. For me, that is my contention. Yeah. Someone will say you're speaking very well and don't come back. We want to work on this. Let's discuss ZESCO and the solutions to ZESCO. Yeah, let's discuss ZESCO and its solutions. They are saying it's not profitable, but they will not push the money that ZESCO is owed by both the state and by, by entities like KCM. Let us push those numbers.
I'm also aware of the electricity problems that Zambia is facing. But despite the problems that we have with the supply of electricity in Zambia, you still supply us with electricity. Again, you would have said, we cannot sacrifice our power when we have shortage. But you still give us. Katima Mlilo town, where I come from here, is supplied with power from Zambia. When you have a power outage here, we also have power outage. But that's the brotherhood we are talking about, the neighborhood we're talking about. And we should only be grateful and continue to exist in this manner. You spoke also about the Walsh-Bendola-Lumbumbashi corridor. I want to tell Your Honor that that corridor was developed during our time. I was Permanent Secretary of Works and Transport. And my counterpart here was Judge Sichinga, Dominic.
The power issue, I think, is huge here. And colleagues, we continue to share everything.
Hello, good evening. Good evening. Please tell us your name and where you are calling us from. Yes.
No, Mr. Mamba, don't worry about my name. I remain Mr. X.
Wonderful, Mr. X. Please make your contributions.
Thank you very much, my brother. You are doing very well.
Thank you.
We are being educated with your program. Please continue. Go ahead.
Yeah.
We are behind you. We are learning much from you.
Thank you.
It was good to lecture that caller from South Africa. The way you explained the thing, he thought you were pushover. I happened to know him. He was asking as if he wanted to know if you have data.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your defense you put up.
Yeah, no, thank you.
It was excellent.
No, I'm grateful. Thank you.
They learned something. Thank you so much, Mr. Wamba. Do not relent, please. Go ahead.
Thank you.
God bless you. God bless you.
Okay. Okay, it looks like the caller was encouraging me. I'm grateful. We bother to research a bit. And like we are saying, it doesn't mean that ZESCO doesn't have issues. ZESCO has issues. But how do you resolve the issues that ZESCO has? Let me read some comments here. One is asking, Kondwani Muntali is saying, will we ever get back to normal with regards to ZESCO? Because now they have this 17-hour load shedding. Mr. Songa says, our leaders don't learn from the past. They believe in IMF too much. IMF will not help us. IMF has no business in help us. In fact, in helping us. IMF will suffer more under IMF than if we're running our own books. It will make us poorer and poorer. I wonder about these, William Monza says, I wonder about these presidents, why they have so much faith in the IMF. Their role is a danger to this country as it has been in the past. Yeah. Henry Kasumba, Mwamba Rikwata Data, thank you very much. Ambassador Emmanuel Mwamba, unbundling of ZESCO Limited now will spell doom for the country. It will further spark, okay, it's a long one, let me just read it. It will further spark increases in the tariffs by increasing the cost of production. there's too much interest in the generation and transmission components of the corporation by proponents of the unbundling of the company. The distribution side will not attract investors because of the problems associated with it. Our access to electricity by the population stands at 42%. This could even be higher. This is 61 years of independence, and bundling of ZESCO will even dwindle chances of electrifying the country. Already there is a lot of incorrect trading patterns taking place in the electricity subsector. We now have middlemen in the importation of electricity, and I have no doubt this has contributed to the increase in the tariffs. I think it's referring to the emergency tariffs which we are paying for. Okay, there's a call. We'll prioritize the calls for those that have sent messages. We can read later. Yeah, hello, good evening.
Good evening, Ambassador Mwamba.
Good evening. Please tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
My name is Nancy.
Okay.
From Lusaka.
Okay, Nancy, make your contributions.
You know, I wonder sometimes what this current government wants to be remembered for once they are out of office. Because the decisions that they make, you can really wonder, how does it benefit us as a nation? Currently, many of us are complaining about the impact of the power situation. And then someone believes that the best thing they can do for us is to destroy ZESCO. Our country as it is, our population is actually very small for the land mass that we have. But then when you look at how much of this population actually has access to ZESCO power, it's a very small percentage. Before we can even get to electrifying our entire country, you decide to sell off such a key parastatal. It just doesn't make sense. Once the private sector is running ZESCO, for them to expand into a rural area, they will just look at what will be our benefit. Are we going to get the returns? They will just say no, and that's it. They would rather they can build power plants, generate power, and export all of it and not give to the poor Zambian, who is in the majority. So you really wonder what is the motivation for people to disbandle and try to privatize ZESCO. Is it because they have some other interest? They want to be the ones who own those parts of ZESCO, or what? I hope that when you and your group come and take over government, these are the things you will reverse. Don't just tell us today that you are against it. Then when you come in power, you start talking like them to say these decisions were made by the previous government, so we cannot do anything. We cannot get out of this contract. Mr. Sata showed us he got Zamtel back from Lap Green. We can pay the cost of that, because really what we're losing in the long run is far much more than whatever it is that we may have to pay to someone for getting the company back from them. It's very unfortunate. Many small businesses have gone out of business because of the power situation. Families have lost livelihoods. A lot of people are on the streets now. Crime has gone higher in areas because of lack of livelihood, legal livelihoods from people. And then someone believes the solution to us having 24 hours power is to go and sell ZESCO. I really don't understand this government sometimes. I really just don't. And it's heartbreaking that you think these people should be patriotic. They want to save the interests of the nation, but their actions tell us something else.
Yeah.
So really, I enjoy listening to your program because you are very well researched topics, and you communicate in a sober manner, and we look forward to more of these engagements. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Susan from Lusaka. Akalamba Mababaletuma from Italy is a resident of this program. Is the president of Zambians in Italy. Mr. Mabo. Good evening. You are a bit in the background.
Maybe because how about now? Maybe I'm a little bit more clear.
Yeah, that's better.
I hope you are well today too, Ambassador.
No, very well. The Lord is blessing us. We are discussing the case of ZESCO. The IMF has commented about urgent energy reforms, and we know it's an issue of ZESCO they are talking about.
Right. Ambassador, the on Monday, I heard you raise concerns regarding our we digress from issues that are important, and then we talk about things that are not really important.
Mm-hmm.
I think even us as Zambians, also as a people, as a race, generally, it's like we have misplaced priorities. It seems it's like if you give. I learned this in Asia. If you give 10 black young people $100,000 today, the first thing they will do is question my sneakers, which one you to go to a night church, and those things that are really not important. If you give the same money to Asian youths, you will see they will invest maybe and maybe those assets. Now, what's surprising, it's like even after all these years, after all the exposure we've gotten, it seems we can put our priorities right. And I'm wondering, I wanted to ask you, how can a political party stay in opposition for that long without understanding Ubutila? For example, I don't know if you think the same. For me, I do think that sectors you can't really tamper with in any country that's developed or wishes to develop. Our number one in this order, this is my just thinking, agriculture.
Yeah.
Because you need people to have food. Then there is health sector, because you need to have healthy people. And then you need, I'll put it, energy and transportation.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have energy now, or people can't really move around properly, there's nothing you can do. Then, because after energy and transportation, according to me, then comes education. Because first people need to eat, they need to be healthy, they should be able to have electricity and be able to move,
Yeah.
And then education, and then comes fear sovereignty, like the military and all this. And it seems like our people, including Abari Mupawa now, it's like these are not sectors that they have prioritized, because Ababa IMF, for example, they have these neoliberal policies. You can only imagine the conversations they have behind closed doors regarding sub-Saharan Africa. It's very disparaging and demeaning, And then they come to us. How can you let a foreign entity that was established when we were not even there tamper with any cardinal? It's in the middle, energy and transportation. It's in the middle. If you followed what I was saying, like agriculture, health, and then transportation and energy. What's the aim of them wanting to unbundle it? Like, because Westerners that divide and conquer. So then they can control us. You manage your CEO, board chairman, and then they are confusing you with the details, but holistically, they are getting the benefits. If we're not to shala, the head of this sector or subsector.
Yeah.
So for me, Ambassador, it's all still, I'm talking about patriotism.
The mentality and patriotism, yes.
And by putting our priorities right, as well as Katuisha, I don't know how we can fight neo-colonialism, those stooges amongst us. Because if you look at the policies regarding even the heart of our economy, mining, it's like we don't even know what we are doing. And then I heard, because Kwaribama shareholders who are Zambians, electricity, even we are exporting electricity to countries when our own people don't have. How is that even possible? Imagine the world hearing about this. They would say, these are not serious people. Why do they even have a republic? So today my contribution was about prioritizing what's really important in life, the fundamentals of life. You need to eat.
Yes.
And then you need to have agriculture. You need to have healthy people, to have a healthy nation, health. And then you need to have energy, electricity and transportation, energy, oil, fuel, fat. And then you need to have education, educated people, and then at least the military. But it's like all these things, when you know better. But it's like now, federal mambo jumbled, and we are really digressed, and we talk about irrelevant issues to what really is important in life, even as a nation. So I hope, even as Mukesa government ambassador, that will have these priorities, these fundamentals of life, please.
No, thank you very much, Mr. Marvel. Let me see if there are any other callers before we close. Thank you very much. That was Mr. Marvel, a dear brother of ours to this program. He calls very often. He calls from Italy. He's calling for patriotism and this belief in foreign entities, foreign nationals, foreign businesses, in foreign investors as the only solution to our country is what eats us. And he's right about one thing. These programs are not crafted by, they will have Zambians that will support them. They will not have foreigners. You will not see them. When we say the IMF privatized our companies in the 90s, over 225 companies, and deindustrialized our country, if you look at the details, who passed the Zambia Privatization Act? Who passed all these laws? It were us. So sometimes we become willing participant to something that is destroying ourselves. And that's what Mr. Marvel keeps on reminding us, that even during doing our work, can we be patriotic? Okay, so today we're discussing the electricity sector. In our view, the solution lies in expanding that electricity. There's an opportunity for Zambia to be an energy hub and an energy primary exporter of this electricity. We have seen, if we look at the development plans of the DRC and Zambia, our plans for energy generation and electricity supplies are very, very high and advanced. And in a period of 10 years, we've demonstrated that we have doubled our generation capacity. So we can be an electricity hub. What are we doing to the reserves at Mamba? 200 years old, 200 years of reserves. You can put up power thermal plants there, and they can help us become, like I'm saying, a net exporter of electricity to the region. And then ZESCO can roll out this ambitious program to our rural areas to ensure that each area is supplied with power. And the statistics are dim. It's about 24% of our people are the only ones supplied with power. Someone said 42%, but I think it's 24%. So you can imagine the 76% are living outside our national grid. That can never be fulfilled by the private sector. They can never. It can only be fulfilled by a sector like ours, like ZESCO. ZESCO can also begin to put up off-grid solutions like they did in Chinsali, where they set up a 1 megawatt small hydro which supplies power to Chinsali town. You can do off-grid solutions. If, for example, taking huge industrial lines is expensive, you can do mini grids purposefully to deliver power to our people, because access to electricity is a fundamental right. ZESCO becomes important. Let us not do away with it. ZESCO today announced load shedding of up to 17 hours. They are saying, although there is some water in Kariba, they are banking that water for the whole year. It shows that our economy again will lag behind, because there will be no power to generate, to produce, to do whatever it is that our people need to do good economic activities. Many people remain in the dark currently, and I think it's important that we change. Oh, I missed your call. Please call before we close. It is going to be a brief call. These technical subjects sometimes elude our people. Tulande pavunga, no worry. I would have a lot of callers, but sometimes it's necessary that we foster these technical subjects onto you, because these are your national assets, and you ought to know what is happening to your national assets. Don't abandon the subject. It is necessary that you know what is happening to your assets. They are your assets. People are making decisions, even from Washington, from New York, about your assets, and you are quiet, discussing, irrelevance. Amaire lefita twalelanda ku school. Okay. Okay, I think we are done for the day. We've done brilliant job. Last week we were discussing power trading and the companies that are involved in trading of power, that in light of the crisis we've had, there are people that have lucrative contracts to supply power to ZESCO and to the DRC. And we think that this venture must be transparent, open. The opportunities is for all. The opportunity is not to shut down the trade, but the issue is that the trade should be done in a transparent manner where whoever is involved in the sector benefits, and it should be done under cloak and dagger, under non-transparent, opaque methods. And we thought that the role of the private sector would be to ramp up production of electricity, but we've seen them move just to trading, burdening the infrastructure of ZESCO. This is an aging infrastructure, and there's no corresponding investment to the sector. Today we're discussing ZESCO, the vertically integrated utility. It produces, generates power, it transmits it, it distributes it, and it retails the power. It's also involved in import and export of power. The reforms by IMF have been very focused on unbundling ZESCO, but we've seen that countries that have yielded to the demands of IMF are already struggling. Ghana, Kenya, after they unbundled the utility. If there are other private players, let them come and compete with ZESCO. They don't necessarily have to replace or sell ZESCO. ZESCO is an important utility to our national development plans and ambitions, and it should be allowed to remain as such. So we're discussing in light of a visit that was done by Vera Martin. She came to the EU, to Zambia from the IMF between April 29th and May 13th. The Zambian government has finished its earlier program of $1.7 billion bailout. So the IMF team had come for a fifth review so that they could disburse, I think, all last monies associated with that earlier loan and put Zambia on another path, because Msokotwane wants another loan of $1.5 billion. So they've made a report that was issued, and among the concerns is electricity shortages, and electricity could undermine the economic growth that is projected. And they've called for urgent and sustainable reforms to the energy sector. We were arguing on this program that the sector has already received adequate reforms. We've allowed power trading. We've opened up, somehow liberalized a bit, the monopoly of ZESCO. Independent power producers now have a stake and play. Open access, where transmission and distribution lines have been open to the private sector, have been done. There's even net metering that the president proposed. The reforms have been done. So what more reforms do you want? Why do you want to unbundle ZESCO? Was our debate and question today. So until next time, until we have another topic probably on Friday, God bless you. God bless our country, and God bless Zambia, and God save whoever is messing up with our country.
The issue of power SC. You know, when you are in a country like mine, when we have passed through a lot of load shedding, people say, oh, so you see, they are selling power to Namibia. This is a town in Namibia, very close to Zambia. We are talking of one-stop border, for example. And if you have one town with blackout, then how do you do 24-hour? But this was an agreement, that is the only thing I would add, was an agreement that was signed in 2020 between Zambia and Namibia. And you don't give up or relegate such commitments. As you have seen, Zambia is a reliable friend to everybody that they work with. So we don't just say because the situation has come, when in fact there is no other solution on the other side. That's why we are also importing power, as the others are, you know, getting a bit, just a bit of power from here. We will continue. Let's invest it together in the systems, like I said, in renewable sources of energy. Together we can develop and be interconnected and ensure that there is no disruption in our economic development, because power has so much on that.
Zambia is facing severe power crisis, with the country's electricity company alerting the public that from September 1st, many users would have to bear with up to 17 hours of no power supply daily. Zambia Electricity Supply Corporation, ZESCO, said recently that the power disruption, which is locally known as load shedding, will be implemented across the country. Some parts of the nation, including the capital Lusaka, are already experiencing long hours without power supply. On Tuesday, August 27th, ZESCO said in a statement that it acknowledged with regret that some customers, particularly those in Lusaka, have experienced extended power rationing of about 20 hours. In a statement on Monday, ZESCO said it was anticipating a significant power supply gap from the month of September. The company attributes the shortage mainly to drought, which has affected hydropower generation. The other cited factors are annual power plant maintenance and equipment failure due to faults and vandalism. ZESCO said a major water collection facility near Lake Kariba is only 9% full, making it impossible to generate enough hydroelectric energy from the facility. The company added that the power plant at Kariba North Bank risks shutting down by September 14th, further worsening the power crisis. ZESCO has therefore advised Zambians to use electricity sparingly. For instance, the company has advised Zambians to unplug electric appliances that are not in use to prevent standby power consumption, to use energy-saving bulbs, and to schedule power-intensive activities such as laundry and cooking during off-peak hours. According to ZESCO, the peak hours for electricity consumption in Zambia are from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. and again from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. local time. In June, Zambia's parliament told the then Energy Minister, Peter Kapala, who has since been transferred to the Fisheries and Livestock Ministry, that ZESCO often breached its own load-shedding timetable. For instance, ZESCO would write on the schedule that power outage would last 12 hours in a given area, but in reality, it would last up to 20 hours. Kapala said at the time he would direct ZESCO to stick to the load-shedding timetable. Zambia has announced plans to import electricity from the neighboring South Africa and Zimbabwe to address the shortage. In early August, the new Minister for Energy, Makozo Chikote, said Zambia would soon procure generators which would be installed at hospitals, schools, markets, and critical business areas.